Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about Saturn transiting the first house in a natal chart. Now, on average, Saturn will traverse a house for approximately 2.5 years. However, if your house size is a little bit larger than average size, then Saturn will be in there for a little bit longer duration. If your house size is a little bit smaller than average, then Saturn will be in there for a little bit of a shorter duration. Well, anyway, people, well, you look at this transit, the first thing I see is that Saturn is the taskmaster, and when Saturn transits the first house, this could be the time where you have to really you're called upon to take care of responsibilities. If you've been shirking responsibilities or discarding them and not maybe procrastinating on them or what have you, this is the time where a lot of times you don't really have much choice but to take care of them. Saturn is the taskmaster, I'm sorry, and being the taskmaster, you pretty much you're that is what you may be very strongly during this transit. This could be a time where you might take on maybe even an overabundance of responsibilities. It could be maybe attributed somewhat to putting some off previously. This could be a time where you could be a lot more maybe introverted, more introspective during this period. You might come across to others as not quite as extroverted or gregarious as you ordinarily are. And even if you have a chart that suggests extroversion, you could surprise some people and come across as a little bit, I want to say, well, maybe shy to some degree, but just a lot less outgoing. And you could, during this time, you have to remember the first house is about like beginnings and new beginnings. And this could be a time where you look at yourself through introspection and evaluate yourself, and you see what can you actually start to make improvements or modifications. It could be connected with your physical body being the first house, your outlook, and you may start something now, but when right or near the time when Saturn makes that initial transit, when it hits your first, right near the point at the beginning of the transit, right near where it's at your first house, pretty much, that might be the point or near that point where you might start these new beginnings. But Saturn, the fact that the transit on average is it lasts 2.5 years, approximately 2.5 years on average, this could be a very slow and methodical process. You wouldn't expect to see instantaneous results during this transit, but it could start something where it could be very positive for you as far as making positive changes, whether it's to your physical body, your outlook, things that might, and really, this is something too where you look at this transit and you might come across as a little bit more pessimistic than usual, even if your chart suggests that you're rather optimistic and expansive and what have you. And really, this could be a lot of time for a lot of seriousness, and it could be just really looking at yourself realistically. Self-delusion will not go very far during this time. If you had any thoughts about yourself where you built yourself up to an image where it was greater than you actually are, this is the time where things, I guess you could say, go down to earth, come back to earth, so to speak, and you're looking at things in reality and not through any rose-colored glasses or what have you. This could be a time too, now especially if you're an older person, you might be more, you might be a little bit more susceptible maybe to perhaps some illness. The vitality may be diminished and depleted to some degree. You might not have as much endurance during this time. I see it possible a little more propensity than the average transit to maybe have some kind of debilitation during this time. Maybe it could be something connected with the sign that Saturn occupies for the majority or the whole time of the transit. If it's Taurus, for example, it could be something perhaps connected with the throat And if Gemini, for example, maybe it could be something related to the arms, perhaps. Now, the thing about it is that you have to remember that during this time, you might really be more prone or might even be more forced to work harder and more laboriously than usual due to the fact you have all this responsibility that might be added to you during this time than usual. And this is a time where you really have to take that good hard look at yourself seriously. And really, you come across, if you're a male person, you might come across as a more fatherly during this time than usual, more of a mentor maybe to others, even more of a mentor regardless of gender. You could be someone uh, that maybe it could be possible too that your father might figure more prominently in your outlook, in your outer demeanor, your personality during this time than usual. If there's anything connected with your attributes, what you're able to do, your capabilities, there's no delusion at this time. It's really you really look at yourself more realistically as what you can do and make improvements, perhaps in modifications as far as that goes. Well, anyway, it's also important to look at the aspects that are made from this transit to your natal planets and points, as this could impact the transit. Now, let's say, for example, that transiting Saturn in your natal first house is making a sextile or trine to your natal Mars. Well, this could indicate having a discipline to something you may start, initiate, and it could also be through working laboriously. Now, in first, this could be connected with the physical body, such as working out vigorously, the appearance, and it could be something connected with your outlook on life, and maybe it's about self-help books, for example, to really improve your outlook and really being trying to be more expansive, for example. Now, let's take another example. Let's say that transiting Saturn in your natal first house is making a square in conjunct or opposition to your natal Jupiter. Well, this could indicate you might be bombarded with work and consequently feel overwhelmed during this aspect in this transiting aspect, I should say. Now, being in the first, it may be perhaps seen readily from others on a first impression, and it may be taxing perhaps as far as your physical body goes, being the fact that Saturn's transiting the first. Now, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Saturn transiting the first house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about Saturn transiting the second house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.